Welcome to In It to Win It. This is Steve Barton, and thank you for tuning in. We're here at the 2026 Rural Symposium in Boca Raton. I'm here with Joe Mazumdar, the geologist behind Exploration Insights. Joe, thank you for coming on the show.
Thanks, Steve.
Yes, we work together in the Rural Classroom Plus as well. Today, we're going to talk some geology. Okay, so what are some of the key things that you look for? So we can go through gold, silver, copper, and nickel. Maybe kind of run through some of your macro thoughts on what you look for as a geologist. Let's start with gold.
Okay, with gold, we've seen more M&A, but most of the M&A has been in production. So what I'm looking for is more M&A on the development plays.
Okay.
And so when I'm looking at development play, I'm looking at what a suitor might want. You know, something that can be permitted, something that makes sense in terms of the mining methods and how it's going to work. Does the resource hold together? Metallurgically, can they actually get the kind of recovery that they're modeling? And capital-wise, is it very intense?
Okay.
And so I'll try to find, but most of what I'm trying to do is not scale, more so something that fits into intermediates and people that can act quicker than majors. So I don't need 5 million ounces, but it'd be maybe 3 going to 5.
Okay.
But a mine plan around that with enough metallurgy to make somebody comfortable that it's real.
Okay.
And then jurisdictionally, someplace that most suitors would be comfortable with. Even if they're in a bad jurisdiction, they might consider this jurisdiction as diversification that makes it better for them.
Okay.
You know, so it's like anything. Like a lot of these companies that have really good assets, but in the wrong jurisdictions, they consistently get discounted, and they have to basically deliver 60% of their cash flow to dividends or buybacks. But in this instant, if their share price is there, they can start acquiring other things with their...
You mentioned developers. Like, is there a reason, like, were you at a certain point in the cycle where that...
It's always like, there's always this, like the Lassonde curve, if you look at it, there's, you know, one way of making money is from in the discovery phase, from grassroots exploration, but that could go to zero as well. And the second phase is when retail leaves, and then it's all about de-risking.
Yeah.
And retail doesn't like that. That's when you get institutional and other people coming in, and then it's a slow rise going the other way, but it's all about feasibility study, no other news, you know, metallurgy, no other news, that sort of thing. But that's when the suitor is looking to see what's going to happen. And these projects are usually undervalued because the junior, you know, has capital risk. The junior has, you know, labor issues that they can't have all those people. So they have much less risk developing that than a major. That risk is embedded in their valuation. And sometimes asymmetrically. Yeah. So you have to look at these ones and you say, well, that one makes sense, this one doesn't.
Okay.
So then ferreting through that one and filtering that gives you a higher probability that this might get taken out. So that goes through all of those commodities in terms of that stage. Yeah. Like from exploration to development to production. The development stage is usually the one that's mostly discounted.
Okay.
Because mostly what people want, meaning suitors, they want production because they don't want to deal with permitting, they don't want to deal with capital escalation, they don't want to deal with any other issues and they're willing to pay a premium on top of that. Yeah. But if you get a project that they can actually build, they're willing to take a chance on that. Yeah. Because they can get it a bit cheaper.
Okay. So it doesn't have anything to do with where we are in the cycle. You've found your little niche that this is your strength of identifying things that are cheap in that part of
it's cyclical in the sense that, you know, you have impetus for M&A, and the impetus for M&A has been happening over the last couple of years, but most of that M&A, especially in the precious metal sector, has been more for production, consolidation on top. Seen the same thing in copper. And so after a while, there's not much more to buy. Yeah. So now they need material impact development projects that fit their portfolio. It's easier to materially impact an intermediate producer than a Newmont or a Barrick or a Agnico. Yeah. You know, and they move slower too. Yeah. That's the other issue. Yeah. So now we have longer permitting cycles. We have, you know, longer development cycles, financing, you know, still some financing risk. But if you could find something that people want to build, want to buy because it's built properly, then you can have a liquidity event before it comes into production.
Yeah. Okay. What about silver? What any specifics on silver that you look
Yeah,
for when
like
you're looking at silver?
silver, major production it's basically a byproduct. So there's a lot of base metal mines that produce zinc or copper or lead that have that have silver in it. So silver is usually not driving the mine plan. So that's why silver costs overall tend to be low. But most retail want silver dominant projects. Problem with silver dominant is it's hard to find a pure silver producer like gold. Usually what you end up with is 40, and if you're lucky, 50% silver. It's hard to find something that's very rich in silver. Usually it comes with base metals or gold or something else.
Yeah.
Gold, people mine less than lead or zinc or something else, because when people do silver equivalents and it's 20% silver and 80% lead and zinc, that's not really,
It doesn't make sense.
doesn't make any sense. So, but if it's gold, they mined less
Okay.
in terms of, okay, but it's gold. Yeah, so that's okay. So what I'm looking for is projects advanced that are outside of Mexico,
Okay.
just because there's security concerns there, like we've seen what happened with Vizsla.
Yeah.
And there's also a lot of issues with taking concentrates out and people getting robbed, gangs sort of, forcing people to pay to make sure their people don't get kidnapped. And all that I really don't want to handle. And then on top of that, you got the government that I know that Go Gold had got permitted.
Yeah.
But I think that was mostly for the underground, their new project they changed to underground.
Los Ricos South.
Yeah. But, they have another project that they want to make an open pit, but they got to wait for the government to change.
Yeah.
And hopefully that new government doesn't have an informal ban on mining, mining open pits. So, but also exploration in Mexico is problematic, and nobody's doing grassroots exploration anymore in Mexico. And most of the consolidation in Mexico is other Mexican operators buying something else in Mexico at a discount.
Yeah. Yeah.
I if I'm convinced about Mexico, I'd like to see another company coming in.
Yeah.
And what I've seen is even Mexican players look for M&A outside of Mexico, look for exploration outside of Mexico.
Okay.
Whether it's Fresnillo or Southern Copper, which is owned by Grupo. Most of their copper projects are not in the Laramide belt of northern Mexico into Arizona. It's in Peru and other places.
Okay. Okay. So, despite a lot of silver being in Mexico, you're avoiding it because of the political situation.
Yeah, and so whenever I do, like in the letter, I'm picking something, I'll have a thematic, and I'll say, okay, this is what, but I don't want Mexico. So what can I get?
Yeah.
And that generally, if I'm looking for silver dominant, like 40 to 50%, outside of Mexico, it shrinks.
Yeah.
The potential companies.
Yeah. Yeah. Drastically.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, but then you're not subject to that risk either. I mean, like, with Go Gold, they're waiting on that permit for what, like 2 years or something? I mean, it was a long time. That's a long time to have money just sitting there doing nothing.
Yeah. And now we're seeing that permitting delays in Peru on drilling permits. So for me, when I do invest in Peru, and I have been actively doing that, and I've been on that 2-week excursion to Peru with site visits and a conference, I'm looking for people with drill permits.
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't have to wait for that.
Yeah.
It's already done. And with social license to operate with the communities, that I know that's good, that's there.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay.
Because even with a big property, the problem is that property can be divided into 3 or 4 different communities.
Yeah.
So your project might satisfy this community, but the other one over here is a completely different conversation.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. And they might not have had that conversation yet. You know?
Okay. Okay. That's probably one of the things that you look at when you go and visit these mine sites, right?
And those sort of diagrams don't show up in their presentation.
Oh, of course not.
Yeah.
No. No. Yeah, you wouldn't know that unless you went there. Okay. How about copper? What are some things you look for in copper?
We did well on a development play, which was Arizona Sonora, that got taken out by Hudbay, because that thematic was domestic cathode production, meaning domestic meaning U.S., and that was going to deliver it. Hudbay was building their own project called Copper World, also in Arizona, so they had a footprint there. They had a mix of private and public land, whereas this project was all private, easier to permit because it was all state. So permittable, built up a resource, taken out the risk of underground, because a lot of the underground projects that we've seen that are coming into commissioning have blown their capital out. So it's better to go with open pit.
Okay.
And there's not a lot of open pit, especially SXEW, which produces cathode globally. And this was one of them.
Okay.
And so for me, that was an easy progression to a takeout.
Okay. And you even knew who was going to do it.
Because they put a strategic hold on it.
Yeah. Okay.
So that's the kind of thinking that goes into this.
Okay. How about nickel?
Nickel is not a loved commodity, but I think it's turning.
Yeah.
Because a lot of the production has been curtailed because of prices, and also Indonesia.
Okay.
Yeah, and also Indonesia is scaling back because of the environmental impact of their laterite mining there. So that's going to impact nickel production there. And also with the whole idea of where production's coming from. I've looked at more nickel in the U.S., in Minnesota and that. And also I've been looking at actually processing, because processing is one of the most important parts of critical minerals in terms of the supply chain, and looking at scrap. So a company that could take scrap that already exists, they won't make a big impact on production, but they'll produce nickel sulfate. That is what the end user gets. That's what the EV manufacturer wants.
Okay.
So they won't have to sell it to a smelter.
Okay.
Yeah.
Huh. Wait. So you mean like nickel recycling, or?
Yeah. So they would get material,
Yeah.
whatever it is, and which is high in nickel.
Yeah.
They'll put it through their proprietary process
Yeah.
and produce a nickel sulfate. They also produce copper cathode. They produce silver powder, and they are looking at tungsten as well, but only if the tungsten price makes sense.
Yeah.
But they could process a whole bunch of things, but it's a constant game between what scrap you want as a source, and then what you're going to produce, and who's going to get the offtake.
Huh. Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So you don't need a hole in the ground to get it. You get
No.
it from batteries or wherever else.
But it's the supply, and the more, it's just like in a mine. The variability of the grade is like the variability of the scrap.
Yeah.
If you get a homogeneous scrap, that's better for you. If you know what you're getting, you don't have to this one yes, that one no.
Yeah.
It's this whole 3 tons is good.
Yeah. Okay. You alluded to it with silver, so you just avoid Mexico, right, because of the permitting issues.
And sort of gold. I mean, I know a lot of gold projects I've done in West Africa, but I'm avoiding West Africa too.
Avoid
For
West
gold,
Africa. Okay, for gold. And are there any other geographic locations that it's just a hard no for you, and you no more thought?
There's probably more no than yes, but if we stay positive, I mean, I like the U.S. because I think permitting, even public, has become a lot easier on the BLM.
Yeah.
And less risk of NGOs, especially with projects that make sense. And then Latin America, a lot of countries have switched from left to right. Started in Argentina with Milei, it's gone to Chile with Cast, and recently when I was in Peru, their second round of elections, which just closed last week. Now Keiko Fujimori and she's right of center, and the left-wing person didn't get in. It was marginal, 50.01%, but she won. And in the symposium I was at, all the miners wanted her to get in.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So that's a positive for permitting. That's a positive for the mining sector.
Okay. What do you think of Colombia?
Colombia, I've been to several times, but most recently in November.
Yeah.
And there's definitely projects on the west side, going down from Cobre Panama, on that sort of belt that have grade, that are sizable. They're not cheap to drill, so they need lots of money to develop and to explore, but the prize is definitely there.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So you like U.S., Latin America, Argentina, Peru, and Chile?
Yep.
Okay. And you kind of...
And Brazil.
And Brazil. Okay. You kind of just avoid everything else, basically? Or
well, I mean, I
there's
can
so
only
much to
have
find
so
there.
many companies.
Yeah.
And then if it's studying a new jurisdiction that might be problematic takes a lot of time to get comfortable with.
Yeah.
And it's the same thing with picking a niche market in critical minerals. Like I did rare earths, but I did a deep dive on the processing part of it because that was a problematic part. And so I got comfortable with it, and I bought one, and I've done really well on it.
Yeah.
I can't do that for every one of them.
Yeah.
Like I'm not going to do tungsten, and I'm okay with antimony, but as a byproduct to a gold deposit.
Yeah.
Not as a primary.
Yeah, yeah.
You know.
Okay.
So
okay.
so yeah, that's how I sort of deal with it.
Okay, interesting, interesting. Okay, if anything I should have asked that I didn't in this macro view of these metals and areas to avoid, any final thoughts?
Yeah, well, I mean, the near-term markets are volatile, so that's why it's good to consistently do a little bit. I mean, the way I do it, and I think I explained this last time, is that depending on how much work your viewers want to do, if they do not want to do a lot of work, go with higher liquidity, ETFs, bigger companies, and if you're willing to do more, and then go for the not a 20% cager or something like, but more like you want a triple bagger, 5 times more your money, then you have to be willing to take more risk, but also do more work to mitigate that risk.
Yeah.
Because it's not like it's a 5 bagger or a 3 bagger. It's a 5 bagger or a 0
Or a
bagger.
0. Yeah.
But a 0 that you may not realize.
Yeah.
Because it was so liquid, it'll just cost you to take nothing out.
Yeah. That's a great point. Okay. If we're going to go a little bit deeper with premium subscribers into some specific companies here at the Symposium. If our viewers want to get a hold of you and follow you at Exploration Insights, how can they do so? What can they expect?
Contact us at explorations.com. I did this presentation on Peru. If you email me, I can send you a PDF. There's lots of stuff on the website that's free. But if you want to subscribe to our weekly newsletter that we talk about what I'm buying or selling and themes like Peru and the stuff I've just discussed, just go to explorationinsights.com and you'll find it.
Explorationinsights.com. I also got to say, your presentations once a month in the World Classroom Plus are top notch. I feel like we have our own personal geologist. Joe, thank you very much for coming on the show.
No, thank you.
And thank you for tuning in. We're going to go a little bit deeper with premium. So if you want to watch that episode, there's a link down below. And also, if you want replays of the Rural Symposium, there's a link down below for that as well. Thank you very much for being here. You have a wonderful rest of your day and happy trading. For more content like this, check out these videos right here.